Welcome to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast. Thanks for joining us on the Journal of Biophilic Design today. We are launching in Australia with the journal, Australian version of the Journal of Biophilic Design in 2025, and we are doing a series of interviews with some leading names in biophilic design in Australia. And today we're excited to be joined by Talina Edwards. She's founder of Envirotecture. And they've received many awards recognising their meaningful contributions to sustainability with their architectural projects, and also their advocacy roles as board director of Australian PassivHaus Association, coordinator of Australian Architects Declare, and for the Archi-Team Advocacy Committee. She's obviously passionate about creating healthy, beautiful, functional, comfortable, and a sustainable architecture. Which combines building science and also, which we love most of all, biophilic design. So, Talina, first of all, many thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to have these conversations.
Well, can you tell us about yourself, please, what you do?
So I'm based in a place called Ballarat, Wadawurrung country in central Victoria. So right at the southeast of part of Australia, and we're inland. It's a bit cooler here. Not in the capital city. We're a bit higher up, so we have some more temperature extremes, and this has contributed to the work we do around making sure our homes are healthy and comfortable. So I've been a director of Envirotecture only for 18 months, but the practice has been around for 25 years. So I did run my own practice for about 10 years here first, and then merged with the good folk at Envirotecture because we were saying we're stronger together. There's only so much we can do when we're very small practices. So there's only a dozen of us, but we're a slightly bigger size now, so we can have a bigger impact across Australia. So I run the Victorian office, and we have another director, Andy, running the New South Wales office. But we do have projects dotted across the country, which is lots of fun. And as you mentioned, very passionate about everything to do with sustainable design, regenerative buildings, and a better ethos. We really care about health. We really care about people, and we really care about the planet because we want a healthy, thriving future for the future generations. And yeah, we're definitely not just dreamers about this stuff. We like to say we're dreamers and doers because we do take that action. We're not all talk. And as you mentioned, we're very much involved in advocacy and voluntary work as well. All of our directors have been over the years because we care about giving back to the community and leading in that way, and hoping that that has a bigger impact, not just the individual projects that we are fortunate to work on.
Oh, no, that's great. And there are some amazing projects, and listeners, I do suggest, I'm going to put a link to the website on the spiel that goes with the podcast. There are some really inspirational spaces and places that you do, and I think you've got a thing called like love projects or something like that, and it's like you've got houses, not houses, and then love projects, which I love. So obviously it's like volunteer stuff and things that you've done, and some of them are just absolutely amazing. So thank you for making the planet better, as well as places and spaces better for people too. So you've got, as I just said, loads and loads of different projects that are on the website, but and I really don't know where to start a conversation, to be honest, because there's so many things we could talk about. But maybe we could begin with actually what got you into design, and maybe also sustainability. What were the two things that kind of sparked two pathways?
I grew up on the outskirts of the city of Melbourne, and that area there were a lot of mud brick homes and timber homes, and an artist community in an area called Eltham. And that really drove my interest in homes that weren't just all sort of plasterboard or cookie cutters, and there was interest to them, and it was quite a bushy setting and sort of rolling hills, and I didn't appreciate it a lot as a kid, but over time I did understand how lovely that and connected to nature we were in that particular area. And I'd spend so much of my free time drawing house plans and looking at interior design magazines and building Lego. I just loved everything to do with houses, but also nature. I was always drawn to trees and forests and plants, and I wasn't very good at looking after plants in my bedroom as a kid. We learned quickly about, you have to take care of it. And then as soon as I got to uni, I studied at the University of Melbourne I was a little bit of an outsider there because there wasn't a lot of the curriculum focused on sustainability and and healthy homes. But I remember a subject that was focused on sick building syndrome. I think it was a subject that was really about, HVAC and mechanical services. But I was fascinated to really understand, how could our buildings be making us sick? How could this happen? Why didn't we have a responsibility to be making them better? So I was very fascinated by that subject. And whenever there was an opportunity for an elective to be involved with, guest lecturers or tutors around anything to do with sustainability, I just jumped at it. Anything to do with nature and organic and helping the local wildlife association with their building, leaf motifs and things. I just, that wasn't sort of the mainstream path that most people were going down, but I couldn't help but always be drawn in that direction. So it's just been ingrained in my psyche.
It's really nice. And biophilic design, where's the biophilic design fit in? Where did the sort of like the epiphany or the words or whatever come to you?
Yeah, I think for my final thesis project, I did I called it an eco-healing resort, and it was all about our connection to nature, looking at all of the senses and how it wasn't just about the visuals of architecture, but how we might be able to smell the lavender or the cedar or whatever it was. It was a big focus on all of the senses, hearing wind rustling in the trees and the birds, all of those things. And I was doing a lot of research at the time about how, people in hospitals would heal faster if they had a view of nature and not just a view of a brick wall or something. So I didn't know back then, 20, 25 years ago, that was called biophilic design. I just thought it was, eco design or healthy design or something like that. But that's definitely where a lot of my energy went. And so it was only over time, I think, learning more about the Living Building Challenge, and when biophilic design started to become, that's a different way of describing it, and that's what this means. And it just resonated so deeply because that's always been the way I've considered these things. And also with, celebrating the seasons, being mindful of those, and all of the different elements and the textures and all of that. So because that's what feels like gives that real spirit of place, that soulful connection with what we do. And I feel like there is a much bigger importance on this right now. Since the COVID lockdowns, I got very involved with the Architects Declare movement in Australia when it first, came about. I'm not actively involved as a volunteer right now because it took up a lot of time and energy, and I'm so glad they've got new people to help out because it was such a small group of us, so passionate. But it's a reminder that, we are in a climate and biodiversity emergency. We are, and day to day it feels like it gets forgotten and we get distracted and not meant to be focused on it. But I can't help to have this awareness every single day. And I know that science alone is not going to shift everyone's mindsets to start to behave differently. Scientists have been telling us about climate change for how many years now? And there is a shift and people are paying attention, but I don't think that's enough. And that's why I feel like biophilic design is a lot more important, because it is our love of life and our love of nature and our care for the country. And if that's what's driving us from in here, that changes everything. Of course, we're going to do what's right because we care and we want to make sure that, we have a thriving future for all. So to me, biophilic design is more important than ever before to create that paradigm shift that we need.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can feel it. I can feel you. I can feel it. Yeah, exactly. And the paradigm shift. Paradigm shift is exactly the words, actually, and it is happening. You can sort of there's a lot more a sort of ambition to do the right thing, and I think there's more understanding of, well, we need to do something, and people not understanding what they actually need to do. And it's like what you're saying, sort of biophilic design, well, for me as well, I mean, it really sort of is that solution. it sits above everything. It sits about sustainable design. It's designing for well-being, all the BREEAMs and the well-building standard and all those kind of things. If we implement the principles of biophilic design and biophilia, the biophilia principle, which was, the thing that was expounded right at the beginning, Eric Fromm even, and so then, Will E.O. Wilson and Stephen Kellett, it was about this, and it just, while I think sometimes it gets dissipated into, oh, it's just putting a plant in the corner in an office and it's just this and just that. I think the more conversations that we have and the more education we have and the more we sort of fill spaces with natural light and better acoustics, and I think people get it and understand it. But obviously sustainability is a humongous thing, and yeah, I'm so with you on the whole biophilic design, finding that solution. Are you finding that, I mean, obviously from your perspective in Australia, and obviously you were really sort of plugged into this, the Architects Declare movement over there as well, and obviously still advocating it. I know you've done the 1 mile beach hemp house and loads of other things that were, sort of obviously not passive, just passive solar house, but also using sustainable materials and things. Are you finding that in Australia there's an understanding of it and sort of like driving force, or what's the kind of like lay of the land over there?
Yeah, I think even 10 years ago, like no one had heard of PassivHaus in terms of, the certified PassivHaus standard here. Or I said not no one. It was very new 10 years ago. Now most people have heard of that. Certainly, that sort of 5 years ago when Architects Declare started, we were in the middle of the pandemic. We had bushfires, we had floods, we had droughts. I think that was an opportunity to reset and really go, oh, hang on a minute, what is actually happening? And I feel like that's why right now it's not forgotten, but it's not at the forefront of everyone's awareness as it was back then. However, having said that, Architects Declare did grow. I just did have a check. There's 1,200 signatories now in Australia, which is fantastic. It's not clear to me if that with some of those, are they individuals or are they practices, because there's 14,000 architects registered or on the or part of the Architects Institute here. So to me, I'm like, that's not enough people, but there's 2,000 practices. I'm like, okay, well, maybe if it's 1,200 out of 2,000 practices, we're getting closer. Declaring is one thing, taking action is another. So it's still been a little bit slow to shift the entire industry, but it's definitely got a lot better. And in terms of I was on the board of the Australian PassivHaus Association for a little while there too, and we definitely saw exponential growth in that time. It really has taken off, and similar with the Living Future Institute here in Australia, and even down to the consumer level. There's a local Facebook group that I'm involved with called My Efficient Electric Home, and it's all about getting off gas, using reverse cycle air conditioners, being more efficient with your, putting in insulation and draft proofing. So even at that level, the numbers we have seen growing in that group is huge. We're over 120,000 members now, I think. So I think those little statistics are really helpful of that, to understand that bigger shift. It's just, I'd like it to go faster. But I also know sometimes we do need to slow down in order to speed up, because people who are still new can get a bit overwhelmed by all of this. And I think that's why biophilic design is another really great way of reminding us, we are nature. We're not just connected to nature, we are a part of nature. And if we take that time to slow down and be out in nature and listen and get away from all of the distractions and the overconsumption and the overstimulation that we have in our current world, that gives us time to actually see a bit clearer. And I think that's definitely helping shift more people. I think that's slowing down.
Slowing down is good.
Speed up, and then you can speed up, and then things happen quicker.
Exactly.
But it's a constant reminder, right? The world we live in, the systems that are set up, that is challenging, because it's seen as unproductive or things like that. And it's a constant battle, I think, self-battle.
Yeah, exactly. And because we all feel guilty if it's quiet, we feel guilty if it's like we're not doing anything and we're not busy because of the cultures that we're all, you know, work culture, the productivity, all this sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, we gotta be seen all the time, and then when we
Yeah.
stop, it's like with nature, isn't it? If we just take, like, you know, you're saying biophilia is this whole thing, but nature stops. Nature
Yeah.
stops in winter and it goes, right, everybody, I'm just gonna like take 5.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly. And then, back with abundance in
yeah,
spring. So yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it is trying to honor that. So yesterday I caught myself where I was like, oh, I'm having a slow day. I'm just feeling it. Whew, there's been a lot going on. And I went, okay, I'm giving myself permission to go out for, an hour and a half to go for a walk, recharge, and then boom, I was back. So it's giving ourselves permission to do that sometimes as well, I think.
yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, listeners, take note. Obviously, I said you've got some lovely projects on your website, and I'd love to discuss maybe just one or two of them. The Huff and Puff house, which first of all is a fantastic name as well. Some of the names on the places that you've got are just like great. I don't know if you guys name them or if the clients name them, but whatever they are, they're just brilliant. I know it's like winning awards and all sorts of things, and it's got all the qualities of the house design. It's off grid as well. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about? I mean, obviously, people again. I'm going to put the link to that particular project on the spiel that goes with the podcast. But maybe you could, I don't know, maybe you could describe the house to people sort of visually, so listening, and then maybe explain a little bit about the project, please.
Yeah, we often have fun naming our projects. It's not always what the clients call it. Sometimes it is. This one in particular is built of straw. And so the Huff and Puff reference is to the 3 little pigs and blowing down the storehouse. But it was also we worked with a straw bale prefabricated company who built sort of wall panels. They're called sit-up wall panels, where they build the frame, they stuff in all the straw, and so it's tightly compacted, and then they bring those to site. And then the main builder contractor that we're working with, they're the ones who then sort of stand all the panels up and install them and work with the whole house. So yeah, the sit-up panels are from a company called Huff and Puff, and so we just loved the name and asked them, could we use this name for this house? And they were thrilled because the guy who runs that company, he's now 80 years old and he's still making these straw panels, and he's been working with straw bale buildings since he was in his teenage years. And he's just so excited that this particular project has reached a larger audience. He's just thrilled to see more sustainable design and straw taking off, because there's been little projects here and there. Of course, the owner builder community have always worked with straw, but it hasn't not enough other projects are working with it. So this has been a good opportunity to help celebrate that. And the clients have a remote location. There was no power on the site, no water, no wastewater treatment, anything like that. So yes, completely off grid. It needed to be really efficient and sustainable so that we could keep their solar panel PV system smaller. We wanted it to be very healthy. The clients were very keen on using straw because of being on the land there. So that was sort of a given from day one, and sort of drove the whole project. And it was only in the start of the design phase, this is going back a few years now, where we just got our, I'd done my training in my PassivHaus, certified PassivHaus designer training, and we had another project that was going through the certification process. And so I mentioned to these clients, this is what we did, and it was healthier. And they said, oh, we'd like that too. Can we do that? I said, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Let's give it a go. And we're like, oh, can we do that with straw? We don't know, but let's find out. And that was the most exciting part, because the previous PassivHaus projects we'd worked on were more traditional timber frame construction, which is what most of our projects normally would be. And we wanted to, we knew too that with a lower embodied carbon and how great straw is in terms of, it's seen as a waste product by the agricultural industry, but there's no such thing as waste in nature. So we loved the idea that we could salvage this, because normally this straw gets burnt
Really?
On the fields at the end of, once they get all the good stuff out, this is sort of what's left. And so it gets burnt. And John Glassford, who runs Huff and Puff, said something like 600,000 tonnes gets burnt every year, releasing all that CO2 into the atmosphere in Australia. And that's enough to insulate 40,000 homes. And he's only doing, I don't know, 5, 10, I'm not sure, like so many, whatever the amount he's doing per year. And there is enough for 40,000 homes. So there's an opportunity there to build with more straw. And of course, it's not for every project. In a city or in urban sites that are quite small, we can't when the walls are this thick, but any other projects where you've got a bit more space, it's a really valid pathway. And the walls were rendered on the inside with lime render, which is vapor permeable, so it all breathes and lets the moisture sort of to travel through the wall, which we want it to escape from the house. And yeah, it helped with the air tightness as well. So this is how we were able to still achieve a certified PassivHaus project by using the straw. And because it was all off grid and the clients are harvesting more solar power than they use, it also made it to PassivHaus Premium, which is the top tier you can get for that. It's a long, thin house with a long axis. It's not a very large house in terms of its floor area. It's my clients live there alone as a couple empty nesters. So it's their bedroom and sort of the main living area. And then there's a smaller guest wing with 2 separate bedrooms and a bathroom that is, for when their kids and grandkids come or friends come to visit from Melbourne or elsewhere. So yeah, it's not a very large house, but the long, thin axis picks up the solar orientation we need, as well as the views in all directions. And the roof's designed to make sure it's optimized to put all of those lovely solar panels on top, which we need to harvest all that power. What else can I tell you about the design? That's, yeah, and it's picked up a few awards, including the recent Biophilic Design Award from the Living Future Institute in Australia. We won a shared award with a really large Living Building Challenge project. The Sustainable Research Centre at the Wollongong University. So they couldn't split the award because they were such different projects, but we were competing against each other, like big university project and our little house. So we're very grateful that they awarded both because both of them have different biophilic qualities that were really worth sharing and celebrating. So that's been fun to be able to share the story with Living Future community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like we were saying earlier, it's the more we can share it, the more we get it out there in terms of media and everything else, the more people understand that, oh gosh, there's an option there. Like you said, I didn't realize that and that's really good to hear that that it's actually built, and there's an opportunity there for designers, architects to build with straw, with a waste ultimately of things that would be in like normal consumer. So I suppose they're using it for like cereal and all that sort of stuff, and bread and grain or booze. I don't know what they use the grain for. But then you've got the sort of the tails, I suppose, isn't it? The stems of the straw, isn't it? That's kind of it, straw. So, and then they're just burning it, which is releasing like more CO2 into the air, more yeah, so it's we need to have a bit more. What I really love actually is that you've and obviously having this an architect's eye, as well as like trying to find a solution of how you can get as many solar panels on the top to maximize on that the solar gain, or whatever you call it. I don't know, there's probably a technical term for that, but what a clever idea. Did you look at the site? Did the land inspire that, or was it a bit of combination?
Yeah, I think at one point we went down a tangent where the client was keen on looking at those solar roof tiles. So the tiles themselves are the solar panels. And we did investigate that, but it was hideously expensive compared to a traditional roof. Yeah, look, early adoption of any of these things. So look, if a client throws up those sort of ideas, we're absolutely willing to have a look into it and see if it's a valid pathway. And sometimes it is, like the straw, we said, yeah, let's do it. But once we found out about that, this is going back probably about 10 years ago when we first looked into these solar tiles. It might have changed. It hasn't popped up again recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got it's a slightly asymmetrical roof design, but it was designed for those roof tiles. And the site itself absolutely, inspired the design because it had to respond to the solar gains that we wanted, but some of the best views. So here in the southern hemisphere, our sun's in the north, so we needed to orientate the house to the north for all that winter solar gain as well to enter inside the house. But some of the best views were to the south, and normally in solar passive land, we're taught never have windows on that south side of the building because they're just losing so much heat in winter. But we ran our energy, our thermal modeling with the PHPP, and we realized that with the balance of everything, it was okay to have all those south-facing windows. And it was like, yes, this is brilliant because we can pick up on all those views and have that connection through light and views to the landscape all the way through the house. And I think because we had such big, thick straw walls, that helped balance that. So even with our triple glazed windows, which most of Australia is still using single glazing.
Oh no.
So we're so far behind. Well, sometimes, yeah, so much is still using single glazing, but look, most of our projects in this sort of central Victoria, we are using triple glazing. Some projects elsewhere we're doing double. But even with triple glazing, you're still losing that heat on the south. So that was really important for us to be able to do that modeling and know we could have these beautiful big windows and doors and step out and have that connection. But if the weather's crap, which it is all the time up there, sorry, it's not all the time, but it gets really hot in summer, can get up to the 40 degrees, and that's really hot to be outside. It gets very, very windy, and they're getting dust and pollens and grasses blowing in, and they are, hay fever sufferers and asthma sufferers. So I didn't want that all blowing in the house all the time. There are bushfires in the area occasionally because it's bushfire prone country, and they didn't want smoke coming in. And of course, in winter, it's bloody freezing in an area. There's occasional snow, but really it's just icy cold with winds and days without sun. So because of all of that, everyone thinks Australia always has this lovely indoor-outdoor lifestyle. And yes, we want to design for that. But the fact is we still spend up to 90% of our time inside our homes. So if we're going to be inside, why can't we make the home connect to the outside with our light and yes, open all the doors and windows from every room to be able to step out whenever it's lovely. But when the weather's not so lovely, they can be inside and still feel that connection. And that was a big thing with PassivHaus as well. It was because it was still new in Australia. There were all these myths flying around like, oh, you're in this sealed box and you're cut off from the outdoors, and who would want that? That's un-Australian. And so that's why that it was fun for us to go, no, it doesn't have to be like that. And even if your doors are closed, you can still have that nature connection. And our one of our favorite stories is our clients say that the home acts like a bird hide. The birds come right up to the windows outside. Echidnas and other native Australian animals and marsupials, come up to visit because the windows being triple glazed, they can't hear the dog inside, they can't hear people inside. So the animals are happy to sort of co-inhabit just outside the house. And then our clients can spend time watching them. And if they want to hear them, they just crack open the window and can hear the bird song. But we've found that to be such a lovely story to help, shift this narrative around the idea that PassivHaus means we are disconnected from nature, because absolutely not. Bring in biophilia as well. Do it all.
I was actually going to ask you, what's the feedback from the people living there? Are they enjoying it?
Yeah, they really are. I visited them a couple of weeks ago. There was a little filming that was done there with a live audience, and it was so lovely to hear them speak in their own words about how much they love it and how they're willing to share it. Like so many clients are very private, and we absolutely respect that privacy when it's a residential home. They're willing to open up their house and invite people in and have tours and have this video that's now lives out in the interwebs so anyone can see them and their home. And those clients are the best advocates, because we can say all we like, oh, this home is great and it performs like this and isn't it wonderful? But to have their perspective and say, we love living in this house, it's so comfortable, it's so healthy, we haven't turned the heater on, for months, and whatever it is, like them telling that story makes such a difference. And anyone who steps inside that house is like, oh, isn't this nice? And as a designer, we hope that that's what's going to happen, but you can't guarantee that until it's built. And so that's been very lovely to just know that even when we step inside, we go, oh, it's everything we expected and more as well. So yeah, if a client turns around and says you've exceeded our expectations, I think we're doing our job right.
Sort of in terms of sort of client expectations, one of the other projects that I wanted to chat about was the Biophilic bungalow. And I've got here, I just made a note that they said that you're really helping transform the way houses are built in Australia, which obviously listening to you, it sounds like you really are, and you're obviously advocating it, and which is great because you're also sharing the stories, you're sharing the best practice and your experience and stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about the this Biophilic bungalow? Again, another name. I do another great name. I do think that's great. But maybe you could explain what it is, where it is, and then also what Biophilic principles that you adopted.
Yeah, so this project has not started construction yet. So it's a on the drawing board project, and it's with some really great clients who live in Melbourne, down by the bay. I think it's about 400 meters inland from the bay, so 10-minute walk, I guess. So they're in a suburb down there, and there's an old Californian bungalow house on the site. And these were built all throughout our suburbs back in the 1930s, I think 1930s, they were really common. So it's almost 100 years old, but they're tired old weatherboard homes. There's no insulation. There's beautiful single glazed windows, but they have character, often lead lighting, but they are very uncomfortable in all the seasons. So these clients wanted to look at this site of how could they restore the Californian bungalow. They bought it from an elderly woman who lived there in the freezing temperatures throughout winter, and she'd moved on to a nursing home. And so they haven't lived in the house yet, but they've bought it to then fix up and retrofit the bungalow. And then out the back is going to be sort of a new 2-story box, a lovely box, of course, a biophilic box. But so it's going to be the new part that's to a much higher performance standard than the original bungalow. So the clients are looking to do the Living Building Challenge core or pedal certification. So not the full Living Building Challenge. It's very difficult on a residential project, but the intention is to show what's possible. And so not only are we looking at PassivHaus or the Envirotecture standard because it's a retrofit involved, we're looking at the Living Building Challenge as well. And that's involved having meetings with ecologists on the site and looking at the landscape. And it was just a suburban backyard, just some grass, a few trees, a few flowers planted around. So that's been fascinating to look at then the ecology, not only of the actual site, but all the way back to the bay and what used to be there before it was all settled, and how and what animals and insects and bugs and bees, what birds, what can we bring back to the site? How can we improve that? So that's going a little bit beyond the architecture to the landscape design. We're working with a really great landscape designer as well. So it's all very collaborative. And we also had biophilic design workshops early on in the process with the clients, their neighbours. I think their parents came, some other Chris, our client's an engineer and working in the sustainability space, and he's a Living Future accredited, trained professional as well. So he brought in a bunch of people from his workplace too, and other industry colleagues. So we had we didn't have didn't have the structural engineer or the builder on board back then at the very the outset, but basically, yeah, other consultants, landscape designers and things were involved in those initial biophilic design workshops. So we could all, we walked down to the bay, we looked at the existing house, we took photos of textures of driftwood and sand and saltbush, which is a bluey grey colour, and the original pattern glass, like all of this, and brought it all together into the workshop, and lots of sticky notes and lots of photos and lots of pellets, little all the principles of biophilic design on little cards floating around. And it was so much fun. It was so much fun to pull all that together as a team, and also for us as architects to listen to everyone else and see if they were picking up on the same things that we'd thought would be important in our concept design. So what that has translated to is the new part of the building at the back has got a separation from the existing house with a courtyard in the middle. And as you enter the front door, there's that sight line the whole way through the house. So we've got these transition of spaces, but the original house is quite dark to start with, and they had quite small windows. But then as you're sort of coming in the front door and walking through, in the middle there, and you're getting this flood of light because there's this courtyard in the middle. And then as you get to the courtyard, there's a pond that's going to be the relaxation and reflection pond, and the little kind of Zen garden happening there. And lots of beautiful, hopefully, reflections and refractions off the water, which is one of the most delightful things, because water had to be a big part of the design because of being close to the bay. And yes, and then you enter sort of the new addition at the back that then opens up to the new garden at the rear. So they are taking up more of the backyard than the previous house did. We are extending out, but we wanted to make sure by creating this new courtyard space and a really well thought out landscape design at the back, as well as a little sort of pavilion for the outdoor barbecue space, that you have to go through the landscape to get to that as well. So you're having to experience the outdoors at the same time, whenever you're inside the house. So, and of course, natural light's always one, that connection outside from every room. We're still working through and finalizing all the materials, because we're about to get it off to the builder for pricing, but making sure that the materials have all that beautiful biophilic quality as well and respond to the local context. What have I missed? I don't know. Yeah, it's a really fun one. It's been great. I mean, all of our projects are great. So yes, we're very fortunate to work with really great people projects.
This one as well is a case study, isn't it, on the Living Future Institute's website? So yeah.
Yes, it's put up there, and Chris has created a biophilic bungalow website as well, who's tracking progress as we go, because part of the Living Building Challenge too, of course, is all around education and giving back, and he wants to be able to share it with the community down there. It's quite an affluent suburb where most people spend their money on, gold taps and lovely bench tops, and so he's really adamant to go, yes, it can look lovely inside, but it can have all these other amazing sustainability credentials and be a regenerative design, and really use it as an opportunity to invite others that they may also want to consider this pathway. So
yeah, absolutely, that's lovely. And I really love as well that you're involving ecologists and looking at the space and looking what was there originally and hoping to regenerate it too, rather than it just be, well, it's really pretty and it's lovely and it's calm and everything. There's so many aspects of it that are all joined up, so that we do have that beautiful connection to nature, and it sort of I think it regenerates us too.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you find it easy? I mean, you said you did a biophilic design workshop and that with sort of different practitioners and things as well, and the people. But do you find it easy to describe the benefits of biophilic design? Do you find that there's sort of an understanding of it, or that once people understand, oh, I see, that's what it means, they kind of get it? Are people already committed to that design, or to better design anyway, or?
Yeah, it's a good question. Most people have never heard of biophilia, I think. No, most of our clients, I should say, when they come. We did have a recent client who'd seen the Huff and Puff house in a magazine and called up and said, will you do a biophilic design consult? And I said, sure. And she's on the other side of the country. And then she went, oh, would you come all the way over here and do my house? And I said, sure. Okay, why not? So that was I think one of the first times someone has specifically said, look, I really do want biophilic design. And she'd had an initial concept done by another designer that was a bit, she said it was soulless and she wanted to bring that soul into the project. And I think it was a very early concept. I don't want to be rude about the designer. Maybe it would have involved to be something else, but that was really lovely that she felt more aligned with us. And every client and designer does need to feel aligned in their shared values. So for us, that was great that she came on board. But our other clients, we had a conversation just the other day where they were saying, oh, do we need that void space for my new upstairs? They're creating a bird hide, actually, a bird hide on top of their house because they love watching the birds. And if they build one on top, they can see all the treetops and spend more time with the birds. And it's all about aging in place and retrofitting their existing home. And they weren't sure about having this sort of void space because they were worried it might have been a waste, just a waste of space or something that was a bit too elaborate or fancy. And these are, older clients who originally designed their own home. But then we sat down and started to talk through about the reason why we, the void didn't have to be as big, but the reason we had it there was so that as you walked up the stairs, you could see that view out, and it was bringing light down into the center of the home and creating this internal courtyard, which was reminiscent of their initial design intent for their original house. So once we talked through all the reasons why we did it, he was like, oh, absolutely. I'm so on board. That's exactly what I want. And now that you've explained it in that way, yes, I get it because I feel aligned with that. So it's, and we have those conversations via email and in person. And it's really lovely when people realize that when they walk into our studio, they see we've got a lot of exposed brick walls and a lot of plants and a beautiful recycled timber table. And they walk in and feel like, oh, this is lovely. I like the feel of this space. How do I get the feel of this in our home? And that's when we say, well, that's the beauty of biophilic design. It's not just a white box. And we have, part of our studio is a bit of a white box. And so we can talk about that and they can see contrast of, stark white plasterboard against textured materials and nature, whether that's inside or out. And so as soon as we start that dialogue, why would anyone disagree with that?
Yeah, and people who are watching this on YouTube and on the website, biophilic.com, they'll be able to see the exposed brick and the plants that are back behind Talina. It's really lovely actually, and I think that's right. I think if people can come in and experience it, they're like, oh, and I love the word that you use there, when they feel it, they feel the space. And they say, can you give me that feeling? That's kind of it, isn't it? It's this innate feeling. It's the whole thing about biophilia, isn't it? It's this innate connection to nature, which we can't put our finger on if we're trying to explain it. When you put them in a different place, and when they feel it and they get it, and then you also back it up with, well, it's not going to cost you anymore, or it's going to cost this much, and they get it and they can weigh it up, then why wouldn't they? And I talk speaking now about ethical legacy. What are people's ethical legacy going to be? Because I think biophilic design helps them also deliver that. If you're going to create spaces, and if you're a business owner, you need to think about your ethical legacy. It's all right making money now and your ROI, but what's your ethical legacy going to be? Anyway, we can't take it all with us, but we can leave something better behind, and be remembered for like, oh, your space is nice.
We do have quite a few clients who are, through all different ages in their life, but we've got a few that are, in their 80s, and most people think, why would you embark on building a house when you're 80? Like, that's a huge undertaking. But for them, they wanted to age in place and have a healthy end of life for as many years as they can, but also they want to leave that legacy on for future generations as well, whether that's their kids or whoever inherits, or they sell the house, whatever it is. So that's been really lovely. And I just wanted to add to your point before. I remember once a lovely guy here in Australia, Stephen Choi, who basically helped bring the Living Building Challenge to Australia, who was very instrumental in that. Once said, we did an exercise where everyone had to close their eyes and you had to picture your favorite place that was, your favorite place that would calm you down, very small. Close your eyes, picture yourself. Where's somewhere you might like to go to that makes you feel calm and comfortable, relaxed. No one chose a car park or a supermarket or a corporate old office building from the past. Like, no one chose those places. Everyone was like, oh, the beach or the forest or the mountains. And so that tiny little exercise, I've never forgotten that, because I think that's so simple yet so clever, that if that's where our brains go to immediately to go, that's where we feel at home, at peace and calm and connected, then why wouldn't we try and do more of that indoors as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's lovely. Well, we're getting near the end, Talina, and I could ask you loads and loads of other questions, and I hope we'll get you back on to talk about specific ones another time. But is there anything else you'd like to add before I ask you the final magic question?
I don't think so. I've been doing plenty of talking. So.
Well, there's some lovely spaces and places and things that you're designing. So again, just as a reminder to people, do go and have a look at the Envirotecture website, which I will put the link on the website, and some other links as well. And do have a click around and and follow Talina on socials and stuff as well, because there's some wonderful things that she's advocating and sharing great inspiration as well. So thank you. So final question, Talina, before I let you go. The questions I ask everybody when they come on the podcast. If you could paint the world with a magic brush of biophilia, what would it look like?
It's a big question. And I don't know what everyone else, I've listened to a bunch of these, but I haven't paid attention to everyone's answered. But I was reflecting on this, and I think for me, it would be for everyone to have every human to have our remembrance of our true wild nature and our connection to spirit of place, and that, that care for Mother Earth, and how important it is to get out of our crazy, chaotic, busy, overwhelming, overstimulating lives and go out into nature and really listen and slow down, and the magic that can happen when we remember, how connected we are. So I would love for everyone to have that, because once I started reconnecting and having that remembrance, it's just been wonderful. It changes your outlook on everything. So I would love for everyone to have that.
Thank you for listening to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast.